Hi, Misha here, and after quite a bit of waiting, it's time to finally get to issue 17 in Eaglemoss's Battlestar Galactica collection, the Battlestar Valkyrie. I said this was one I was really waiting on during the last video, and it was due in June. Well, it is still technically June, although June 25th, so it made it, but at least it came. In fact, the tracking didn't even show much of anything. Anyway, the Valkyrie type, we don't even really know the class per se, was the most common in the Colonial fleet in a lot of ways. Unofficially, it's known as the Valkyrie class light Battlestar, or the Odin class. And whereas the original Galactica, sometimes called the Mercury class, the Jupiter class, is the big main ship, nearly 1,500 meters long, a crew of 3,500 to 5,000, hundreds of Vipers. That was the big ship at the beginning of the First Cylon War, and during the fall, the Mercury class, the Pegasus type, was the big heavy ship at nearly 1,800 meters long, and not only with a larger complement of Vipers, but also the ability to manufacture them. That left the Valkyrie type kind of in the middle. Whereas those were major ships used as flagships, the Valkyrie type was used more as an escort carrier, or even maybe a heavy cruiser. These were used for patrol missions. They were used for planetary defense, and they were used to support larger fleet movements. For example, Valkyrie here was a member of BSG 41, but she wasn't the flagship. They were in service during the First War, and were still in service after several upgrades and updates during the fall. Valkyrie herself was nearly destroyed at the Battle of Canceron Prime, and she actually was presumed destroyed and written off. In fact, her crew were given death certificates and everything. But this is so she could be made part of the so-called Ghost Fleet, led by the Battlestar Osiris. And this was for a major offensive that would strike all Cylon bases in 5 sectors and kind of help turn the tide of the war. And she obviously survived that because she's still in service. This was Odama's command before Galactica, a few years before Galactica. And of course the whole stealth star thing with Lieutenant Mad Dog. As far as the specs for the ship herself, she is 649 meters long and has a crew of anywhere from 1,200 to 1,800 depending on mission. She has 2 flight pods, obviously. They do not retract like Galactica's, so it's a more modern style like Pegasus. She carries at least 20 Vipers and some Raptors and other shuttles. Her Viper tubes are arranged a little differently. They're longer and narrower, just a different arrangement, and internally she's much more compact, i.e. cramped. But she still, of course, is FTL capable. And for her size, she has a lot of guns. She has 6 primary missile batteries. And she has 20 dual-purpose turrets of one type and 33 dual-purpose turrets of another type, plus point defense weapons. And it's said that this Battlestar type relies more on missiles than the other ones that might rely more on kinetic weapons. She definitely has more of a sharp, angular look, a little more exposed parts and everything than the previous Battlestars. But this seems to make up the majority of the Colonial fleet after the First War and before the fall, which makes sense. It would be cheaper to build, maintain, and operate than a full-size like the aging Galactica, which was older. These were obviously being phased out. And the Pegasus was definitely used more as a flagship, I'm sure, even though they were more automated and required relatively few crew for its size. Still, I'm sure it was very expensive to produce and maintain, leaving the Valkyrie type to kind of, toe the line. Kind of like the Essex carriers for the U.S. in World War II. So we see these during the destruction of the Scorpion shipyards. We see the Bellerophon and the Ramses, presumably of the same class. And during the fall of Caprica, we see Valkyrie herself, along with Yashuman and a couple of others of her class. As far as we know, none of them survived the attack because they did have the CNC program installed. So yeah, this kind of is a secondary Battlestar, but appears a lot in background shots. It's been in the main series, of course, in Season 3. It was in The Plan, it was in Razor, and it was in Blood and Chrome. So she's definitely appeared quite a bit. And that's why I thought it'd be neat to have her. She's considered more modern than the Jupiter class, the Galactica type, but not as modern or capable as the Mercury, the Pegasus. And so I guess kind of slots right in the middle. As far as this model from Eaglemoss, because of all the detailing, it's lighter than the others, and physically it is a little smaller. It's pretty long but narrow, pretty flat. Still has diecast weight to it, but to get all the little points and stuff and detailing on the hull, it's more like the Galactica over here, which is also relatively light. Some have said they wish Eaglemoss would do their ships to scale. That would be difficult with big ships like this. As I was saying, unlike real-world ships that we know the dimensions of, people argue over the size of such ships. For example, while 649 meters tends to be the standard for Valkyrie, some places say 700. Same goes for Pegasus. The reimagined Galactica, and definitely the original Galactica, there's a lot of argument. So even if they tried to make them to scale, which would almost be impossible anyway, whichever one they picked, the other camp would argue that they picked wrong. So really their method of just kind of scaling them to fit the box works quite well. And since Valkyrie here would be half the size of Galactica over here, would you really want a little 4-inch model? I'm sure most people would not. But, yeah, it has the typical stand. Oops. And light there. This is why I don't pick stuff up. It's hard for me. Like I said, this one has lots of points. A lot of detailing. Exposed drive on the bottom. It's an interesting looking model, that's for sure. I think with this one, the creators had very much a free hand to just kind of design something that they liked. When they did the Pegasus, they tried to give homage to the original Battlestar. And of course, when they did the new Battlestar, they had to make a hero ship that would look good from several directions. And again, it had to look kind of like the original, at least to some extent. So when they did the Valkyrie, yeah, they could just kind of let their imaginations run wild a little bit. So it kind of is a more fun ship in a way. But yeah, there you have it. Yet another model. Pretty neat. Well, appreciate you tuning in. As usual, if you could like, share, and subscribe, that'd be great. Any questions or comments, please do post them below. With that, this is Misha, and I will catch you very soon next time.